Here goes. Ruins. A few nights later, Usnavi and his family were startled by a thunderous rapping on the door of their room. Both Lydia and Nena shot up, his wife and daughter. Nena reaching with her foot to the cot where her father lay to poke him awake. His mattress was thin and spread on top of a layer of old Gramna newspapers that crinkled when he moved. Grandma, in English, after the boat the rebels took from Mexico to Cuba to spark the revolution. Usnavi, came the hoarse whisper from outside. Usnavi, please, I need your help. Usnavi felt his way to the door in the darkness, cracking it open a sliver. Outside there were only shadows, but he recognized the tight curls on the head of his friend Obdulio, squat and solid, standing there nervously. Usnavi, you've got to help me, Obdulio said. What happened? Everybody's leaving, he said. Last spring, a few people had jumped the fence at the Belgian embassy, and Obdulio had said the same thing. Everybody's leaving. But it wasn't to be, and then in a matter of weeks, there were nearly a dozen Cubans in the Chilean embassy and a bunch to smash through the fence with a truck at the German mission, all waiting for the authorities to relent and give them a way out of Cuba. But after weeks of delay, they all trickled back to the streets of Havana, hungrier and more distraught than ever, and in spite of the risks and the drama, nobody left. What do you mean? Asked Agragi Usnavi. He was shirtless, standing in the doorway in his underwear. The floor was wet and slippery, and the sour smell of the tenement invaded his nostrils. By now, both Lydia and Nena were beside him and wrapped in the bedsheet. In Kohimar, it's like Mariel, Obdulio said, swallowing hard. Usnavi felt both Lydia and Nena tense up next to him. What does it have to do with me? He asked warily. Not again, he thought. Not again. Back in 1980, during the leakage from Mariel Harbor, how many had left? How many had disappeared? How many had never been heard from again? I'm leaving, Obdulio said. My family and I, we're leaving. We're building a raft right now. My daughter and my nephews, they're already there on the beach. You've thought about this? Asked Usnavi, turning into his family's room. Yes, of course, Obdulio said. He pushed his way inside, forcing Nena to scramble up on the bed to make room. Look, Usnavi, you need to think about it. What are you doing here, my friend? What would I do there? He asked. Anything, said Obdulio. Anything's better than here. You don't have to be Salau forever. Usnavi reached up for the cord to turn on the magnificent lamp. There, in the floodlight, was an anxious, blinking Lydia and an eager Nena, both staring at him. Usnavi, we have room for all of you, Obdulio said. Usnavi shook his head. I like it here. You like it here? Usnavi, this is me you're talking to, Obdulio implored. Usnavi, people are leaving on any piece of plastic that'll float. Remember the guy who flew the crop duster all the way to Key West? Or wait, when all those American pastors came, the people near the harbor trying to get a little box of crackers or a can of soup? What do you think that was about, my friend? You think you're immune? Those people, they were a disgrace. Begging like that, Usnavi insisted. As he spoke, he couldn't help but notice how Lydia's thin shoulders dropped and how Nena quickly curled into a ball on the bed and turned her face to the wall. She held onto the corner of the sheet, smudged and sopping from the floor now, which barely covered her. They were a disgrace, he repeated, hoping to elicit a different reaction from his wife and daughter. Lydia, talk to him, Obdulio pleaded. Lydia nodded, standing there with the rest of the bedsheet around her, but kept her silence. I'm sorry, Usnavi said. I'm grateful to you for thinking of us, for your good intentions, but Obdulio abruptly grabbed the door and slammed it shut. Okay, fine, stay. He said, rot if you like. Usnavi shrugged. Look, you're doing better than most. With all those dollars you're getting from your brother and the ones you're making here doing whatever, I'll make more there, Obdulio said. Usnavi nodded. Probably. Look, stay or go. You have to help me anyway. You have to get me some supplies. I need rope. I need some powdered milk. Obdulio, what? You can't get me some lousy rope and milk? My daughter is taking the baby. Obdulio was getting agitated. Usnavi looked around the room at his frightened wife and daughter. I'm not going to discuss this here, Obdulio, he said, pushing his friend out the door. Then he pulled on his trousers and a t-shirt, grabbed his bike, and followed Obdulio out into the night. The two men arrived in Kohimar hours later, but it was still dark. They'd ridden to the beach on their flying pigeon bikes, manual and heavy, made in China in spite of the English name. The Chinese can divine the future, but they can't make a lightweight bike, the gasping Obdulio muttered, the curls on his head uncoiling in the breeze, looking now like pieces of a dirty sponge. The ride to Kohima was always against the wind. Usnavi kept pedaling. Because there was no transportation in the middle of the night, the bus that ferried bikes to the city stopped sometime after dusk, and because non-motorized vehicles were strictly prohibited through the Havana tunnel, they had to go around the bay, adding even more time to their journey. Usnavi wore a lock and chain around his waist to tie his bike, but Abdulio had clipped to his a nifty, lightweight U-shaped lock, solid steel and made in the U.S., guaranteed theft-proof. They entered the cozy fishing village as a silent parade of young men and women made a line to the shore. Carrying inner tubes and wooden planks, they looked like rows of giant ants hauling lifesavers and toothpicks in the moonlight. Watching it all, from the protected confines of elegant Las Terrazas, one of Ernest Hemingway's old haunts, were foreign tourists, their eagles bubbling in the air, and journalists too, TV camera lights washing the landscape. Also somewhere in the restaurant, Gregorio Fuentes, Hemingway's old boat captain, now practically mummified, propped up to play checkers or dominoes for the tourists' delight. Near the rocky shore, Cohimat is all dog's teeth, a snarling bank of coral and junk. Groups of people hammered away at their rafts, tying ropes around pieces of rubber, metal kegs, and plastic jugs for buoyancy. There were no surfboards anywhere, no windsurfers pretending science or recreation. This was all out in the open, revolution suspended. A different group stood apart from the builders, waiting not so much for the rafts to be built, but for other northern sailors. These folks, dressed for holiday travel, some carrying suitcases, umbrellas, a bowler hat or two, still others with plastic bags or bundles wrapped in newspapers, others nothing at all, gazed at the black waters, watching for the flicker of faraway flares, ready at a moment's notice to leave behind even those very satchels that now seem so precious, and leap onto whatever gleaming white yacht or slick flat cigarette boat kissed the shore. Although some had flashlights and others hurricane lamps lit by who knows what for fuel, everyone was featureless except for their eyes, large white orbs slightly startled by the sudden bursts of light. On this night, different from every other night in Usnavi's memory, the town sloped down to the sea, but he labored to envision instead plateaus and rugged ranges. In his mind, he was somewhere else. Katanga, or Shaba, an impenetrable forest full of wild geese and ostriches, buffalo and lions. He imagined nut rafters with fields of coffee and cotton, rubber trees, coconut and plantain, timber from cedar, mahogany, iroko, redwood. The staring eyes were peacocks Usnavi had never seen, pelicans, herons, and other wild birds. While the work continued on the beach, no one said a word except the local fishermen who held tightly to their rows of lines and gaffs, nets and tattered masts. Their own boats securely put away or anchored under guard, they sat vigilantly on the seawall, their arms across their chests, sucking on cigars and hand-rolled cigarettes, passing judgment on the work before them. One guy tapped a long hardwood stick on the ground. Another held a machete against his leg, in a not-so-subtle warning to potential thieves. Not far from them, a few boys rolled dice against the seawall, occasionally shouting with victory. "That won't go, no," said an old man in a red cap, pointing to a particularly chancy-looking homemade dinghy. The others nodded agreement. "That's unbalanced, too, look at that," the second fisherman said as he singled out another one. "They'll roll right into the water in that. You watch." "Que va," explained yet another fellow, shaking his head in dismay at a throng of young men and women who were now lifting what looked like a white wooden kayak. They carried it to the water where it swayed on the surface. As soon as one of the young men stepped into it, his weight took it down as if it were made of paper. A collective moan went up from the group, while they quickly scrambled to recover what they could from the ocean and start again. The fishermen laughed and laughed. Some of the rafts, of course, did float, some precariously, others effortlessly. Usnavi listened to the dip and push of their efforts as the moon sank from sight. In a clearing, Usnavi finally saw the boat being crafted by Abdulio's family, which was dependent on 4 large industrial inner tubes. Usnavi didn't want to know where they'd gotten them. Abdulio's nephews secured the craft tighter with the length of rope Usnavi had procured for them. Like the others, Abdulio's nephews didn't speak, only nodded their appreciation. Abdulio's daughter thanked Usnavi for the powdered milk with a quick, timid peck on the cheek. The baby was fast asleep on her shoulder, undisturbed by the bustle of activity. Usnavi moved quickly away from them. He did not want to look at the rope. He did not want to consider the powdered milk. Before he gathered them up, the rope had belonged to the workers of Cuba.